Yes, well, so look, he made Paul Feig made Bridesmaids, which I loved, Spy with Jason Statham on top form, and that Ghostbusters, which I didn't have a problem with, and it was good to hear him say, yeah, that thing about all the haters online. This stars Anna Kendrick, who I loved from Twilight to Pitch Perfect, and Blake Lively, who really wowed me in The Shallows, and I thought was pretty decent, and it ends with us. I know there's been a whole bunch of other stuff about that. I went back to my original review of A Simple Favour, in which I described as a frankly chaotic mashup of conflicting genres: ditzy rom-com, erotic thriller, modern post-noir, old-fashioned whodunit. I said in my review of that the source book, because it's based on a book, was billed as a chilling debut thriller in the mold of Gone Girl and Girl on the Train, that Wikipedia called A Simple Favour a post-noir mystery, and Paul Feig there calls it Hitchcockian thriller. So, what genre is it? Well, who the hell knows? But in the original film, the tonal shifts, they're all over the place. I mean, it's messy and scrappy, but because the two central performances gel as well as they do, the whole thing holds together. And as I said in my review, this shouldn't work, but somehow, against all the odds, it does. It was, I think I said in my summary, it's a film that was lifted up by its cast, peculiar, genuinely all over the place. I also ended up by saying, I think I enjoyed it, because the two leads have got the measure of the material, even when I didn't. And as you said yourself, it became something of a kind of cult favourite during lockdown. So this sequel is built as a black comedy mystery set 5 years after the first movie. And as we just heard from that interview, Stephanie is promoting a book about Emily, who shows up and invites her to Capri to be maid of honor at her wedding, despite having previously tried to kill her. So Anna Kendrick, Blake Lively are back alongside Alison Janney, as you said, Elizabeth Perkins, who sometimes steals a show. And Paul Feig said that he's afraid of sequels. He tends to avoid them. And that at times he tried to, you said he said that he tried to kill this because he was terrified that it wouldn't work, and he loved the first film so much. And then he said he talked about the writing process, and he said there was one point where they thought they were going to give up because it wasn't working, and there was a lot of stuff being thrown into the mix. They thought they should abandon it, but then the writers, every time they did, the writers would come up with something else. Then everybody had an idea, and then then this happened, and it's rubbish. I mean, it's absolute rubbish. It's lightning didn't strike twice. And what's interesting about what's rubbish about it is that going back to my review of the first film, I remember thinking, this is one of these things that shouldn't work, and yet somehow it does because of this charming chemistry. And this time it's just like, no, this shouldn't work. And it doesn't, because it is a bag of stuff thrown at the screen in the most incoherent, ramshackle way. It is tonally all over the place. It isn't funny. It isn't tense. It isn't sexy, quirky, interesting. Now, I don't take any pleasure in saying this, but one of the things with this film is it literally just consists of a bunch of completely unbelievable things happening, and then the characters going, oh, well, that just happened. Ironic wink. None of it makes any sense. Glamorous travelogue footage. I mean, Capri. Hey, looks pretty. Ludicrously contrived and uninteresting thriller plot. And then characters going, well, that just happened. And here's the really brilliant thing about that interview. You say in the middle of it, and I this had never occurred to me. You said, it could have been a musical. And I thought, Simon Mayo, you are a genius. It should have been a musical. Paul Feig said this thing about, but when you go into the musical things, the musical sequence, it will take you out of the reality of the stakes. There's no stakes. There's no reality. I was never thought any of this was real. But being a musical might have made the out there part of it acceptable, because the point about breaking into song is it becomes a fantasia. I mean, heaven knows they're dressed for a musical. I mean, it's all costumes and set pieces, and and that hat that she wears at one point that's like the size of the rings of whichever planet it is. And and in fact, and once you said that, I thought that is so insightful. It is like watching a musical that never sings, a musical that never breaks into song. It just lies there, and you keep going, go on, do the thing that would be the only thing that would exist. And what was really fascinating was, I mean, I think it's genuinely awful. I think it's a massive waste of talent and resources. And I'm not saying any of that because I like so many of the people involved in it, but it's just it never ever has any idea what it should be tonally. And the reason is when Paul Feig said that thing about, yeah, but if you broke into song, it would take you out of the tension of the Hitchcockian thriller. And I thought, you have no idea what you've made. You literally have no idea what you've made. And I don't think I've ever said this in all the time that we've been together on this show. You could have made a better film. You should have been in that meeting and said, guys, this is a musical, whether you like it or not.
Yes, if you can make a musical about the end of the world, as we've discussed in the last couple of weeks, you can certainly make a musical out of this. That hat, by the way, which is an almost laugh out loud moment, should tie with Willem Dafoe's pipe in Nosferatu as being a kind of, what? Can we just pause it? I just need to see the size of that thing. Anyway, no, I have no intention of seeing it again. But Paul Feig is an interesting guy.
Yes,
it's
I'm
just
not saying
the
he's
film
not.
Isn't.
Yeah, but it's rubbish, isn't it?
I'm afraid it is. And that's all that there is to, and they're clearly thinking franchise because it's set up at the end for another one.
Yeah, it's not. I don't think this is coming back. I hope it's not coming back. Or if it does, it had better be a musical or they'll have to answer.
I think he's wrong about AI, by the way. I increasingly think people who say, yes, but there's nothing original. It's just, I think we're going to be having a different.
It's much more worrying than that.
Yeah. I actually asked ChatGPT whether it had scraped any of my books.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. And it took a long time before it answered. And it basically gave me, we only use things that are legally entitled and it's publicly available. And then it said, why are you asking? And I said, because I wrote them. And it went, wow, cool. So, I didn't learn anything. But it is going to take over the world.